Hi everyone, my name is Wendy McDonald. I'm Investment Lead for the Sunshine Coast Council and I am your MC for tonight. I've worked for Council for more than 13 years. It's almost a little bit embarrassing now. But I guess what keeps me here is I think now is the most exciting time that I've ever known. There'll be people who have lived on the coast for many years and they've known about this CBD and they've known about this cable, but it's all coming out of the ground now. The time is now. My role, I guess very succinctly, is I help companies land and expand. And when I have companies come to the Sunshine Coast now, I take them out the front of City Hall and we could just go for a walk around City Hall. And I show them, oh, over there is the NextDC data centre. That's the cable landing station. That's our first cable. Oh, and we just happen to be having a second cable that's coming in. We just happen to have a $200 million expansion of a second data centre. And as we go around the building, we've got two 19-storey towers that are coming out of the ground. And as we walk around a little bit further, we've got a 15-storey premium building. And ops, there's more. We go around, there's a $100 million private hospital. So all of this is pretty cool, isn't it? It's all very exciting. And I guess one of the things that I lead in partnership with Michael Werrett is this program called Testing Tech in Paradise. So not only do I take people around the building, we come inside and I say, well, you can have the opportunity to come and test and trial new technology in a real-world environment. And I don't think there's anywhere else in Australia that you can do that. So the ability to test and trial technology gives us a competitive advantage. So our speakers tonight, we're extremely privileged and honoured to have Anderson from Google, Craig from NextDC, and My Security Media, although they've been in the background, have been extremely helpful in helping us promote some of our programs. If anybody wants to get in touch with me, my details are there and I'll have them showing again at the end of the night. I'd like to invite Mayor Rosanna Natoli to come and give the official welcome. Elected in March 2024, Rosanna has been serving the Sunshine Coast community for nearly 30 years. With a background in journalism, education and community engagement, she brings a deep understanding of the region and people. Rosanna is passionate advocate for the arts, local business and social equity, and is committed to building a brighter future for all who call the Sunshine Coast home. Can you please welcome Mayor Rosanna Natoli.
Thank you, Wendy, and good evening and welcome to you all. As I look around the room, there are so many of you I call friends, and others of you I am just meeting. But what we all have in common is that we believe in the future of the Sunshine Coast, and we have a passion and a drive and an excitement about what is on offer here and what our future holds. I'd like to begin by acknowledging the traditional custodians of the land in which we meet, the Gubbi Gubbi people. I acknowledge their connection to land, water, culture and kin, and thank them for their careful custodianship of this land over millennia. Speaking of custodianship, we are all custodians of this land, and here on the Sunshine Coast, we are part of a biosphere, one of only 5 in Australia. And that means we are all absolutely responsible for respecting and protecting our way of life, our people, our economy, and our environment. So let's think about our economy, because that's what we're here for tonight. Tonight we are here to focus onto the future, to shine a light and really be brave, be courageous, be excited, be driven, be all of those things that allow us on the Sunshine Coast to be different and to carve out a future for our children, for their children, for all of us to share in that prosperity. Can you see that dream? Do you want to be part of that dream? No, come on, you can do better than that. Do you want to be part of that dream? Yes, and that is why you are here tonight. Now, I have a few acknowledgements. I'd like to acknowledge our Sunshine Coast CEO, John Baker, and members of our executive who are here this evening, as well as our 2 portfolio councillors, Councillor Terry Landsberg and Councillor Joe Natoli, my colleagues. And then, of course, as you've heard, an incredible lineup of guest speakers. NextDC CEO and Managing Director, Craig Scroggie, We also have Anderson Silveira from Google. Hello, Google is in the room. Are we excited to hear from Google? Yeah, come on, are we excited to hear from Google? Yes, we are. We also have Bundle of Rays founder and director Bradley Chesham, and let me tell you, that is an incredible story you are about to hear. Better than Google. All right, so we have a little contest going here, and maybe I'll pop up at the end and we can do a little crowd cheering and see how we go. But we've got NextDC, absolutely international global powerhouse. Google, well, enough said. And now we've got a little contest here with Bundle of Rays, also competing for your attention and your vision. They want you to buy in and join on our vision for the Sunshine Coast as well. As well, we have our friends from Walker Corporation, our partners here, and then to each and every one of you. You have chosen to be here today because you also have an interest in that future of the Sunshine Coast. And hopefully tonight does more than just spark that interest. Hopefully tonight you get to understand the role that you can play in the future of the Sunshine Coast. One that is dynamic, one that is exciting, and one that is full of innovation and technology. And that is where we can carve out our niche. That is where we can create high-value jobs for the future and where we can create futures that we want to be part of. So that's what tonight's all about. And I'm sure there are people in this room who can actually remember not that very long ago that businesses had to drive their data to Brisbane, literally. Uploading data from the Sunshine Coast was slower and more expensive than grabbing a USB and getting in a car and driving to Brisbane. Does anyone remember that? Oh my gosh, more hands in the room than I wanted to see. But yes, it is, that simply wasn't good enough. And it would definitely not be good enough if we wanted to be a region that had an exciting, innovative future ahead. So Council took a bold step, investing in fibre. And in 2019, we landed our first undersea cable, giving us the fastest data connection to Asia and the second fastest to the western coast of the USA. I say we, obviously I wasn't mayor, but I'm happy to take a little credit if you're happy to indulge me on that. Our Asian data connection is faster than out of Sydney, and that is just the beginning. A journalist today actually asked, how many cables are there going into Brisbane, undersea cable? I said, 0! It's Sunshine Coast or Sydney. And they went, really? So we can try telling that story over and over and over again, and we need to. We need to all be advocates for the story that is placing the Sunshine Coast at the forefront of that innovation. Each one of you, go and tell 10 friends. Post it on your LinkedIn. Do whatever you need to do to spread the message, because that is what we are here for here on the Sunshine Coast. And if you need our support, if you need help from Sunshine Coast Council, then our team are absolutely on board. And if they're not, if you have any difficulty, I know you won't, so I'm happy to give it to you. This is my email address. mayor@Sunshine Coast, blah, blah, blah. You'll get there and you will find that we do want to support you in every single way that you need us. We want to be partners with you as you grow your businesses. So understand how powerful that partnership can be as we walk with you on this journey. Think about that. Sunshine Coast Council as your partner. I think it sounds good. And I think it sounds like what the future of the Sunshine Coast can look like if we work together. Now today, I also was happy to launch a special new, innovative, council-led digital infrastructure marketplace in Australia. What does that mean? It's called Data Connect. It's a free service that helps businesses with big data needs find the best local tech company, the best telcos, fast. So kind of like a speed dating service, I guess, for businesses and telco. So if that's you, Data Connect is the service that Sunshine Coast Council now provides. It is another way that we are helping businesses grow right here on the Sunshine Coast. And why does that matter? It matters because the previous process for data transfer involved a drive down the road to Brisbane. And the cost to move 1 gigabyte of data used to be $3,000. It's now around $30. And we are part of driving that change. Companies like local health tech pioneer Bundle of Rays, clearly very happy to be here with us today, they are exporting skills into new markets globally, and you'll hear more from Brad shortly. We're also thrilled to welcome Google's Tabua subsea cable, which is now under construction. It will land at NextDC's SC1 data centre in Maroochydore, connecting us to Fiji and the US. It means faster, more resilient internet, not just for us, but also for Queensland and the Pacific. And I am absolutely delighted that Google is now not only a partner, but an investor in our region. Thank you for being here today, Anderson, and for sharing your story with us in the room, because we know how significant it is to have a partner like Google to share with us, don't we? Yes. We do, because we know that that just doesn't happen every day, and we're delighted to have you here. Continuing on that path, our friends at NextDC continue to show incredible confidence on the coast, from purchasing our landing station and setting up their edge data centre to now investing $200 million in a new data centre here in the Maroochydore CBD. That makes it our largest private investment here on the Sunshine Coast, $200 million to build just over here. So it is a real pleasure to have Craig in the room, and you will hear from him shortly as well. And this is exactly what Council envisioned when they started on this path to being an innovative industry leader in this space. It's about that opportunity. Earlier this year, Council led an ideation session on geospatial capability that helped secure funding for the Space to Sea Accelerator program based at the Sunshine Coast Innovation Centre. And going along to that launch, it just blows my mind. It is difficult to wrap your head around what some of the innovative ideas that are here on the Sunshine Coast. And then lastly, I would like to thank our Economic Development branch, many of whom are here with us tonight. Incredible work turning our cable investment into real outcomes. Otherwise, it's just a bit of plastic under the water landing in Maroochydore. And what a crime it would be not to have turned that incredible opportunity into success for us all. It would have been a crime. And thankfully, our Ec Dev department and the team also think that it would be a crime and are working really hard to ensure that it does deliver the innovation and the opportunities, as I said, for you, for your children, for their children, for all of us to really take part in what is an exciting and bright future on the Sunshine Coast. We know we want the Sunshine Coast to be connected. We know we want it to be livable. We know we want it to be thriving, because when all of those things are happening, we are right on track for a future that we can all be proud of. So if I look at also, we had a company recently that is seeking to employ 25 people locally to distribute their product into the USA and Asia. And that company was choosing between two sites, the Sunshine Coast and Sydney. We are increasingly a genuine competitor to Sydney. What an achievement. I know where I'd rather live. I know where the weather's better. But it's not just the weather, right? It is that kind of support married to this kind of digital infrastructure that makes all the difference. That is the opportunity that is open to each and every one of you and your businesses. Now, when it comes to testing tech in paradise, we know that these trials are helping council improve safety, productivity, and efficiency while positioning us on the Sunshine Coast as leaders in tech commercialisation. We are building a region where local businesses can succeed globally. And make no mistake, that's you. That's why I'm here tonight. That's why you're here tonight. That's why our executive, our councillors, our ECDev team is here tonight to support you to reach your goals and dreams. And ladies and gentlemen, one and all, I hope that those dreams are high in the stratosphere because we are here to help you make them a reality. That is our goal and dream, our vision for that connected, livable and thriving community of the future. And I cannot wait to see what you, backed by us, what we together can deliver for the Sunshine Coast of the future. So I say this to you, bring it on. The Sunshine Coast Council is ready to partner with you, and I can't wait to see what we can deliver. So enjoy the rest of the evening, and thank you so much.
So I'm absolutely delighted to introduce our first speakers. We'll have Anderson Silveira and Alex Lynch from Google will be joining us by live Teams. Just an overview about Anderson, and I have to say, once again, I've been always incredibly grateful for the support that we get from people and the amount of time that Anderson has given to help us with our promotions. It's extraordinary. So Anderson works as a strategic negotiator, part of the Google Global Networking and Infrastructure team based in Australia. Anderson's interests span from subsea and terrestrial network infrastructure and optical connectivity to land asset acquisition and fostering strategic data centre partnerships. He is involved directly in Google's Australia Connect initiative to deliver new digital pathways to the Indo-Pacific region, while strengthening the resilience of Australia's own digital connectivity. Anderson is pleased to collaborate with the Sunshine Coast in this journey. Now, I'll also introduce Alex Lynch from Google. So we not only have Anderson, we're delighted to have a senior executive, a second senior executive, Alex. Alex leads Google's policy engagement in emerging technologies, including artificial intelligence and quantum computing, as well as related areas, including digital lines of communication, technology supply lanes, digital trade and computational infrastructure investment. Prior to joining Google, Alex consulted on crisis and strategic reputation management for large Australian companies. So please join me in welcoming Anderson.
Thank you, Wendy. I don't think you know the competitive edge that Sunshine Coast enjoys currently. Madam Mayor said about that situation where Sunshine Coast competed with Sydney. For us to make a decision where to land a cable is a very involved and difficult one that involves lots and lots of items. Just to give you some color, and that is one of our objectives tonight, is to go through the machinations and the genesis of a subsea cable. But talking about the landing of the cable here in the Sunshine Coast. When we were doing our decision-making process, we scanned and scouted over 200 kilometers of coastal line north of Sydney, trying to find an alternative location to land the cable. And Sunshine Coast won. So we have to keep that in mind. We do believe in the Sunshine Coast. So that's great to be here. We are very happy and humbled with that opportunity. to be able to partner with NextDC and with the Sunshine Coast Council. We worked with so many people in the Sunshine Coast Council who have been very well received right from the beginning when we approached the council with this crazy idea of landing another cable here. And the vision that was shared with us by the council and by so many professionals in the Sunshine Coast, as well as in NextDC, was amazing. Really consolidated with what we had in mind. And here we are. We are now on a stage where we achieved a critical mass to allow us to talk more about the Australia Connect initiative, how that fits into a much bigger picture, because Australia is not isolated, thank you, from the rest of the world. That fits into the South Connect activity or initiative, the Central Connect initiative, which are basically this worldwide subsea cable program that Google has in place. So I'll start talking about cables. We think about subsea cables as being something large in nature, and they do extend for thousands and thousands of kilometers. But at the end of the day, it is something as small as this. This is a subsea cable. The project itself is very, very exciting. It enables a lot of things. It is an enabler, but the footprint we're left with is, look, putting things in comparison. If you can see the screens from there, this one has is 1.3 centimeters thick. The magic happens inside. That's where the optical fibers are, multiple fiber pairs usually when you land into a location, because we always think about the future, how to scale the networks, how to service and enable different services in present as well as in the future. And of course, as the cable gets closer to the shorelines, we have to protect this subsea cable with an outer layer, a protection layer, which is the picture you can see on the right. So basically, the thickness of the cable increases from 1.3 centimeters to something around 5 centimeters. So it's very environment friendly. It's largely passive. And I'd just like to share a video with you about another cable we landed elsewhere that was called the Topaz cable. Like here, that was a first when we landed the Topaz cable, which connected Japan and Canada directly. So it does take a lot to land a cable. And we also, it was said in the video that it was the first cable that connected North America to Asia back then, in 2023, that was. Now we have fast forwarded to 2025, and after this initiative from Google is completed, Google will have the largest subsea cable plant in the whole world. It's not a matter of contest. It takes a lot of CAPEX and takes a lot of OPEX. It's a matter of necessity, because we know a world where AI is really coming. It is happening. It's not the future. So much so that we have an example here that we are going to talk about soon by Brad. And that's great to see services like this happening. A cable is an enabler. It goes hand in hand with data centers, which NextDC is doing this very successfully across the world, not only in Australia. So if we look at the global map of submarine cables today, this is how it looks like. So this is public available information if you refer to that website there. The total sum of submarine cables is responsible for carrying around 98% of total comms in the world today. So everything internet, broadband, at the end of the day, we think about wireless, but wireless really is last mile. There's a massive infrastructure behind it, and 98% of this traffic is carried by submarine cables. If you go a little bit deeper into that map, you're going to see a large concentration of cables in these segments, which is in the Northern Hemisphere. So if there are any issues of geopolitical or physical nature, like disasters, tectonic plates moving in that part of the world, that impacts the whole world in terms of communication and our ability to live our lives. So that's where the Australia Connect initiative came about, which is diversifying away from these Northern Hemisphere-oriented routes, moving traffic and create a more resilient way of moving traffic and data around through the South Pacific region. So we announced Australia Connect, and that has some key locations. Sunshine Coast is one of them. Okay, there is a Tabua cable there that connects Sunshine Coast with Sydney. From there, if you think about global connectivity, to Fiji, straight to North America. But we have to keep in mind, like the video said, and I'm sure you paid attention, Google's network is a mesh network. So from here, from the Sunshine Coast, we can go anywhere. It's not only a point-to-point connectivity whatsoever. For any business who are more focused on Australian territory, who is more concerned about connecting Sunshine Coast with Perth, look at the map. There are some key cities there that we are landing this infrastructure into, to Sydney, to Melbourne, to Perth, to the Christmas Island, to Darwin. And how about the terrestrial connectivity? That's not even in the map yet. So that's where we are. That's what the Australia Connect project or initiative is. We do need cables for ourselves. We have a very large suite of products that we are going to need more and more capacity to serve based on the Google suite, like Google Mail, Google Calendar, YouTube, you name it. And of course, on the top of it, we have Gemini, we have AI, who is always evolving. Today, you have a lot of concentration in terms of AI farms in the Northern Hemisphere. They are necessary, they're important, and they do play a very important role in the world. Everything you see with these AI farms. So for instance, if you're watching a YouTube video in Swedish, and you want to translate this into English, you want to translate this into Afrikaans, Zulu, pick a language. So there we go. These large language models, LLMs as we call it, they collaborate and they learn a lot faster if they are concentrated together. Now let's think on the opposite side of the spectrum when it comes to AI. I'm sure Brad is going to talk about a very interesting application. Think about AI applications, evolving the idea, where somebody, for instance, who is visually impaired, somehow get a AI-enabled implant that allows that person to bypass the eyeballs altogether and connect a very complex imagery system straight into the ocular muscle and process that information. Think about that. This is an application being studied in terms of AI development. Can the center or the database be based in North America if this person is walking here in the Sunshine Coast? Of course not. You need real time. So this is the other side of the spectrum when it comes to AI applications. So we're going to need a bunch of different applications, a bunch of different solutions as things evolve in terms of AI, which comes to great benefit to all of us, where we need this type of infrastructure available and supporting us for. So everything that comes to the support of an ever-growing necessity to consume data and make applications available, combined with AI, with the ability of doing machine learning, and the famous 3 Rs when it comes to global networking, which is, you can see there in the slide, which is all about resiliency, which is all about reliability of the network. This is a major driver for us. Something, though, that I get a lot, and I want to make it clear, that is not a driver for us. We, Google, are not competing in the retail space, okay? A submarine cable is essentially a wholesale element. It is an enabler. So we enable a very fast-pacing, high-capacity network to allow for all the other applications ISPs, everything to actually leverage on and partner with us. So, for instance, a classic example here is the Data Connect initiative from the Council that is being launched today as well. That is more on the retail space. We are collaborating with the Council, and we are pleased and humbled by that opportunity. That is a great initiative. So the infrastructure will be in place. So how do we leverage on that infrastructure to make this matchmaking of necessity and capacity availability that leverages on this type of infrastructure? That is on the retail side. We are here to enable this dynamic to take place. And we are pleased to collaborate in that regard. Okay? So, for the Sunshine Coast, and to give you more color on what we're doing, that wiggly line there you can see represents the interconnectivity between the existing cable where it lands. They land on the same point, which is called as point beach main hole, which is basically a telecoms pit on the floor. Nobody knows. Remember, the subsea cable is a boring infrastructure. Nobody sees that. What it enables is what is amazing for all of us as human beings. So we have the JGA South landing. We're going to have the Tabua cable landing. They leverage on the same infrastructure that, once again, was laid by the Council over 10 years ago, and it was amazing what the Council did then and is doing now. And that converges into NextDC SC1 data center. For us, a key decision, a key point for us to commit to the Sunshine Coast was the ability to grow the footprint. And that 200 million investment that NextDC is committing to the region is just amazing. That is going to allow us to expand our footprint as well, to commit further to the region, and allow our connectivity to support our products as well as to support our customers only grow. Okay? So for businesses, as you can see in the map on the left, it's not only about interconnecting the Sunshine Coast to the rest of the world, but to interconnect Sunshine Coast to all these other major centers, where we are going to have either our own data centers or partner with NextDC and others, for us to have a presence like we have here as well, and enable and deliver the same type of services. So, with that in mind, I hope Alex is on the line because we'd like to talk about the benefits to the Sunshine Coast a little bit deeper. Over to you, Alex.
Yes, can everybody hear me?
Yes, we can.
Thank you, and apologies for not being here today. I'm stuck in Canberra being way late, but politicians down there, unfortunately. What does cable bring to a local economy? This is something we have experience with around the world. We see this playing out. There's been empirical research, economic research done to show what subsea cables do to a local economy. First of all, job creation, particularly job creation in more skilled areas. This has flow-through effects to other parts of the economy, but foundationally, when people are investing in digital infrastructure in the region, which flows from subsea cable investments, enables them. We see more high-skilled jobs and better-paid jobs. We see more people investing in workplaces and businesses that require that very close digital connectivity, and we see businesses set up to support them as well. These cable landing stations that we see are becoming hubs for further investment. It's important, as you mentioned, resilience. That is very, very important, increasingly important, exactly for the reasons that you mentioned, right? We will see applications coming that need increased levels of compute. We will see applications coming that require very reliable, near-term responsiveness. And that will mean we'll need local infrastructure. And that's where you already have the basis for that. We already have groundwork done. In a place like Sunshine Coast, that's more likely to receive that sort of investment and more likely to be creating those sorts of jobs. It makes them a community more attractive location for technology companies. We're increasingly relying on high-speed internet, and Sunshine Coast has essentially positioned itself over these past few years as a gateway into emerging markets, into Asia, into the Pacific, direct connection to the Pacific for the first time that's been enabled, and to New Zealand as well. It's an enviable position to be in. They often shift the local industry mix over time. We see from the economic data. towards more service-oriented businesses, digitally intensive sectors, and this drives again demand for that high-skilled workforce and contributes to local outcomes. More investment for the local area, more better outcomes in health, public safety, civic participation, and other areas that you might expect when you see sort of a thriving local area. We're seeing the global economy become more digital. We're seeing this rise of connectivity demand, sort of relative rise and falls of nations in this new era. We're at the very, very start of the AI era. It's the start of this journey. Australia is very well placed in a lot of ways because, as I mentioned briefly, geopolitics in terms of resilience, but you're seeing the effects on global supply chains of that uncertainty. You're seeing competition around chips, competition around rare minerals, competition around the technology itself, increasingly around things like models, advanced models, research. There are places like Australia where there is a close relationship of trust with some of the centres of this technology in the West. There is a real opportunity there to increase investment over time. And, for example, to provide trusted services into Asia and other areas that might be affected by changes in geopolitics and where we're able to invest in technology. So I hope that's been helpful between us. We're very, very grateful to have been given the opportunity to work with Sunshine Council. I think this is one of those times when you really feel like there is potential in a place just based on the attitude of the people that you're working with. It makes it very, very easy to make a decision to actually come out to work closely together to partner. I hope people in this room have that experience go along. Those who haven't had the pleasure yet, obviously we hope that our infrastructure and the infrastructure of our colleagues does provide that platform for future investment. Thank you.
Righty-ho. Alex told us that, I think a couple of hours ago, that he couldn't attend because he couldn't catch his flight. So thanks so much to the tech people that sorted that out. Thanks so much for the feedback from Anderson, and we'll be having a panel conversation soon that Chris will lead, and there'll be an opportunity to ask questions then. Our next speaker is Craig Scroggie of NextDC. Craig is the Chief Executive Officer and Managing Director of NextDC, which is an ASX-listed company, Australia's leading data centre as a service provider. Prior to becoming CEO in June 2012, Mr Scroggie served on the board of directors since the IPO and as a non-executive director, including as chairman of the Audit and Risk Management Committee. Mr Scroggie has more than 30 years' experience in the ICT industry, having held senior positions with Symantec, Veritas Software, Computer Association, EMC, Corporate and Fujitsu. Prior to joining NextDC, Mr Scroggie was Symantec's Vice President and Managing Director for the Pacific region. In 2013, Mr Scroggie was awarded the University of Southern Queensland Faculty of Business and Law Alumnus of the Year, and in 2015 was inducted into the ANICT Industry Awards Hall of Fame. Could you please join me in welcoming Craig to come and talk about NextDC?
We are at a moment in time where we'll see and experience more change in the next few years than we have in the last decade. We are making a transition from what over the course of the last 10 years has been the cloud computing era, where we moved from on-premise infrastructure to pay-per-use computing. It was the most transformational time in the history of technology. But everything is about to change again. In November of 23, OpenAI released the first public available interface for ChatGPT. And it really showed the commercial and user application and capability of what large language models will do to the future of society. They will change how we work. They'll change the future of education and how we learn. They will change the future of healthcare, because they will give us the ability to be able to not have all of the universe of knowledge in a single expert, but we'll be able to access the entire universe of information. When a large language model is trained, it is essentially trained on all knowledge. And then we're able to interrogate that knowledge. In a consumer sense, if you're today using a large language model and you interact with it, the simple applications to see the power of it is as you might think, well, my kids can cheat on their homework. And I'm on the board of 3 universities, and one of the most debated topics in education is, if knowledge is universally available, what is it that we are teaching, and how will we test people's ability to be able to apply that knowledge? The example I like to use about the change that we're going through is what it was like for me 35 years ago when I was studying maths in high school. And the single most important question in a Maths A exam was, would I be allowed to take a scientific calculator into the exam? Would the use of a scientific calculator constitute cheating? Or would the use of that technology allow me to do something more important? Would it allow me to build on a foundation of technology and knowledge that could make a larger contribution? And what we have access to today is the beginning of building an era of intelligence that humanity has never been able to unlock. So when we think about building the foundation for the intelligence economy, we are moving from an era where data went into systems and it was interrogated. But today, we're going to be able to do something that we could never do in history. And that is, we can talk to computers with the English language. 30 years ago, when I went to school and I studied software engineering, I had to learn how to talk to a computer. And it was hard, because the computer had a very, very specific structure and syntax for its language. And when you compiled a piece of software code and it sent out errors, you would have to work out how to debug those. But today, everybody can be a software engineer. We will have access to more technology than we've had at any other point in time in our lives. And it will be the single greatest transformation in history. If we zoom into why that matters for the Sunshine Coast, is that you have something that few other people have. Today, to have Anderson here, to have Google make a very, very significant investment in global connectivity, achieve something that many, many places are never able to achieve. When the council made the decision to invest in the first submarine cable, that unlocked connectivity from the US to Australia. It gave the Sunshine Coast the potential to have more than 1/3 of Australia's internet traffic travel to and through the Sunshine Coast. But that wasn't the greatest moment or the most significant opportunity, because a single point of connectivity is an opportunity, but a second cable is validation of the route and redundancy of infrastructure. So in the Sunshine Coast, you've now been able to achieve something that very few other places are able to achieve. And that is that you have no single point of failure in global network connectivity. And in submarine cables, that is an incredibly important milestone. So I don't want to underestimate for you how big an issue this moment is, where having 2 international submarine cables will unlock something that many, many people are never able to access in the world today. So what does it mean for jobs? What does it mean for infrastructure? The first thing is really just to zoom into Asia and look at the position that Australia is in. Australia has a unique legislative landscape that is very, very favourable. We have a secure sovereign nation that has a very predictable and safe regulatory environment. We also have 5 eyes nation status. which gives us a preferred security position in the global landscape. I recently had the opportunity to meet with Arthur Sinodinos, who before Kevin Rudd was the ambassador for Australia to the United States. And he shared a phrase with me that I think really elegantly describes the position that we're in today. He said, in history, geopolitical risks presented many of the greatest challenges that we have for advancing economies in Asia. But one of the greatest geopolitical risks today is the United States itself. And it puts Australia in such a unique position as a sovereign nation, as a trusted nation, and somewhere that has ample land, power, water, a talented workforce, and the infrastructure that it needs, roads, rail, port, submarine cables, metro fibre, all of the elements that we need to build a skilled economy. And if you combine that, obviously, in an increasingly challenging geopolitical landscape, means that Australia is becoming a very, very attractive place to do business globally. So for the Sunshine Coast having 2 submarine cables, for us to be able to announce a $200 million additional investment in digital infrastructure, which will serve the Sunshine Coast for decades, will bring new enterprises, international customers who want to take advantage of Australia's regulatory landscape, its safe laws, and its predictable political environment, and then branch out through Asia to grow its opportunities. I'll finish with this, and that is that Jensen Huang the CEO of NVIDIA, I had the opportunity to travel to Taiwan and meet with Jensen a couple of months ago. And NVIDIA is now the most valuable company in the world with more than a $4 trillion market cap. And I asked him the question because I'd spent a lot of time with some of our federal government ministers thinking about how we will plan for the future of sovereign artificial intelligence for Australia. And Jensen explained to me that one of the most important components of building global AI capability was to have investment in sovereign AI so that Australia could host infrastructure and train models in a Five Eyes secured environment in this regulatory landscape. And if we do that, we'll be able to unlock opportunities that many countries right throughout Asia will never be able to access. So I know it's only the very beginning, but it's an incredible time, not only for Australia in the digital era, but for the Sunshine Coast and what the future of artificial intelligence will bring in jobs and education, healthcare, many of the industries that we have significant global capabilities and competitive advantages. We are absolutely thrilled to be able to invest a further $200 million in the Sunshine Coast. It's an incredible privilege to have the relationship that we have with Google in many, many locations, and to extend that out here, again, is an amazing opportunity for the Sunshine Coast. And lastly, just to reinforce how great it is to work with a proactive, forward-thinking council. There are very, very few others that do the work and put in the time to invest in the opportunities and the enterprises that they do here on the Sunshine Coast. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Craig, for those wonderful insights and wisdom, but we have an opportunity to hear more when we have the panel session. So I guess we've heard from NextDC $200 million expansion. We've heard from Google, but I guess we wanted to drill this down really to what does this really mean for smaller business on the Sunshine Coast. And I'm really delighted that we've got Brad from Bundle of Rays here as a speaker, because Brad is an example. It's just one case study, and we have many of them of very innovative businesses that are out there and really making things happen in a global environment. So Brad Chesham is an experienced critical care nurse and founder of Bundle of Rays, a nurse-led education startup using extended reality and AI to revolutionise healthcare training. With a career spanning frontline ICU care to global clinical education, Brad is an entrepreneur and innovation fellow, and at the Ohio State University, driving the future of immersive nursing education. His work focuses on making simulation accessible, scalable and impactful from rural clinics to international universities. Brad has actually also been through our Testing Tech in Paradise program, so you can learn a little bit more about that. So please welcome Brad.
Evening, folks. How are we doing? Afternoon, maybe, nearly early evening. We are better than Google. We'll just clear that up quickly, but it's great to hear Anderson talk. Thanks, Wendy, for the introduction. It's a real pleasure to be here. It's kind of humbling, to be honest. I don't know what the hell I'm doing here, but I'll give you a little talk, give you the story, and we can decide together. So, bundle of rays. I've worked most of my career in heart-lung transplants. There's two things that nurses really struggle to learn in healthcare. It's something called a bundle branch, which is on an ECG, and chest x-rays. So we're not sort of like a bundle of joy. This is like a deep, meaningful bundle of rays where we can take something that's really complex and use extended realities and AI to deliver simple education. And we can do that globally. So that's been my mission. So we've been on the Testing and Tech Paradise program with the Council, and essentially we've been looking at what does the underwater submarine cable mean for the Council, and how can we test and work with the Council as a local business. Now, one of the key drivers here is that just last week we've closed India's largest higher education immersive learning program ever. So thanks. Again, I don't know how I did that, but hey, here we are. So on the 1st of September, I'll be in New Delhi to do a contract signing ceremony, just coincidentally with the Queensland Premier, standing there going through the process of having a local business doing something internationally. Outside of that, we're currently negotiating with the Sri Lankan government to look at a basic life support program that can roll across the nation. 40,000 nurses, 20,000 doctors. So some of these challenges are big, hard, real-world problems. But for some reason, it seems like we're having some success, which is amazing. And the team around me to be able to get to those hard problems really are the champions of where we are today. So I am just a guy with an idea, and I think the real important message for today is that I was a local nurse at the local hospital. I also taught at the local university as a nursing lecturer. Like, I'm a local clinician. I started the business. I actually seen Daryl here, who was on the accelerator with me 5 years ago out of the Innovation Centre at the university, when I literally just had an idea. You know, before nursing, I started as a sommelier. I studied wine. I have no idea about business. But to this day, after 5 years, I feel like I've done about 6 MBAs. So working on a pricing strategy, looking at an international plan, preparing for investment. You know, there's a lot to do for local companies to have a global reach. And it's easy for Google and NextDC to say, oh, global reach, there it is. Like, it's just not that easy, right? It takes an ecosystem of growth, market testing to get there. And there's been a toll to pay, just ask my wife. The next slide is based around, what does a cable even mean? So if you just consider me the lay person next to Google and NextDC, yeah, okay, we're going to have fast internet. The truth is, I did an accelerator program in Korea. I lived in Seoul for 4 months. Has anyone ever worked or lived in Korea? Yeah, you can catch the bus and get nearly 1 gigabyte of connectivity in public places. The internet's amazing. What does fast internet really mean? Like, for businesses in the council. So I looked up internationally, you know, where have other cables been and what has happened in those locations. Before we get to that, just because of the slides, you can see in the top left-hand corner there, that's me delivering a PhD program with Victoria University, where there's a person inside an ambulance going through advanced life support, which is quite a complex medical task. It's usually done in teams. And this particular patient's having a cardiac arrest and they'll die very soon. And that person is going to work through, assess them, get the stethoscope. Once they go into cardiac arrest, they'll get the adrenaline, get the defibrillator, do all of the tasks that they would normally do. The difference here is that person is in Wangaratta in regional Victoria, and I'm at home in my office with a cup of coffee. And that is the difference of what we're trying to do based off Google Gemini, based off Vertex and Cloud, is deliver remote, meaningful education at scale. And if anybody's been to Sky at the Sunshine Coast, which is a 4-story simulation centre, one of the most beautiful sim centres that I've seen globally, and I've worked a lot, is that physical places cost money. They have a postcode, there's walls, electricity, security, air conditioning. But now with extended realities and AI, we can deliver these trainings from these amazing centres, but to the world. And India, they don't have a small population and a small market, so it's quite exciting for us to be leveraging that. So we have set out on a bit of a new frontier. We have worked a little bit in the K-12 space, but there's a gentleman here tonight, Dr. Chris Sara, that we're working towards something quite visionary. So if we're training nurses and we can do that at scale, we're in India. I've just finished an innovation fellowship with Ohio State University. So we've got a lot of tendrils that are coming out from this startup. But the truth is, if someone's in one location and someone else is in another location, extended realities provide the new real estate. It's a place to go to. And then once you're in that real estate, AI is the work that can get done in that real estate. So much like Craig was just saying about these new technologies with AI, we just don't understand what the model of education is going to be in 10 or 15 years. And the work that we're going to do with Dr. Chris Sara and his team is show that by delivering a secondary school based on Indigenous children across Australia and teach them in their location with technology when they choose to engage with it. And providing these new fundamental pedagogical frameworks in K-12 and across healthcare. There's 29 million nurses in the world, there's 5 million schools and 80 million teachers. These are large markets that have real true meaning for society, and it's ridiculously exciting. So, does anyone know what the name of the plane is down the bottom? I'll buy you a beer afterwards. I think they're complimentary, but I've got you. The plane down the bottom is the Kitty Hawk. That's the Wright brothers' first plane to ever fly. And obviously that's Neil Armstrong, walking on the moon. 57 years difference. 57 to 60 years difference from learning how to fly in a machine to standing on the moon. So if we start thinking about computation, quantum computers, we have no idea what's coming in the next 20 years. But the infrastructure and positioning to build off the infrastructure is the conversation, and I think why I'm in the room, is that I'm the industry. I'm the innovation economy that's going to come from the infrastructure. And I hope that everybody else in the room is in a similar position. So Brazil has got a cable, Nigeria's got a cable, and Portugal all have a cable within the last 5 years. And the resounding results, which have kind of been repeated by Anderson and Craig, are it's going to create jobs. And I literally nearly fell off my chair because I'm just a guy with an idea. I have no idea about cables. So Nigeria created 1.6 million indirect jobs. Portugal's total GDP went up nearly $1 billion Australian dollars just from this one cable. So when you start to think about what we're going to do here on the Sunshine Coast, the time is now. Like, I utterly agree with Craig. Whatever the council has done in the last 10 years to get us here, we should be so happy about that and ready to rock and roll. Okay, I'm going to wrap up. The key words: fast, connectivity. I can train nurses in India in real time with nearly no latency, 24/7, 7 days a week. That's amazing. That's a huge cost reduction in current teaching. Unmatched reliability. By having the cable, I know that I can have 50 or 100 people teaching everywhere around the world, all at the same time, all at once, without any data logs. That, as a business, is incredibly exciting to know that you have that security. The last thing is the global reach. I've been at 4 national events in nursing in the last 6 weeks. I've been a keynote speaker and on panels like this in the nursing industry. 400,000 nurses across Australia, and I promise you, nobody really has a grasp of what AI is or what it's going to do for the nursing industry. Everything is a fluff of, as Craig said, understanding how universities will use large language models for assessments, how hospitals will protect data, but nobody's on the front foot jumping into it and trying to get it done. And that's where we want to be on the Sunshine Coast, because that is the opportunity. Build the use cases. I'm going to play this video as the last piece. It goes for about a minute. We can even stop it halfway if it works. And I just want you to think about use cases, okay? This is what we're doing.
My mother speaks Mandarin, and I speak English, which is a strange thing.
他讲英文我可以听得懂，可是有时候我讲不来嘛。
We'd love to be able to share with you a new prototype we've been working on. You should be seeing what I'm saying just transcribed for you in real time, kind of like subtitles for the world.
What we're working on is technology that enables us to break down language barriers, taking years of research in Google Translate and bringing that to glasses.
You see me? Oh, sí, sí te veo. I'm actually looking straight into your eyes, and it seems like you're looking right at me.
Oh, sí, sí, estoy viendo lo que estás diciendo para guiarte.
Making access to information just instant and intuitive. By doing that, technology fades into the background, and we're more connected with the people and the things around us. Giving people the gift of communicating with anyone, no matter what language they speak, I think is a really powerful thing.
Que tengo que dialogar con muchas personas que solamente hablan inglés. Como magia para mí, porque voy a ver cosas que voy a entender lo que ellos dicen por completo y...
所以可以互相沟通。我爱你。
Effectively, this is the new Google Glasses coming out in October. Bundle of Rays is on the Google for Startup program, and we have $100,000 US in Google credits, and we'll be working closely. I'm going to come down and have a coffee with Anderson in Sydney. But we're working very closely with Google. We're building an army of AI agents. And in October, these glasses are going to come out as a dev kit, which are basically a pair of thick Ray-Bans that have compute in them. We can put digital information into the real environment. So start to think about being in a rural location in Mount Isa or Quilpie, and you're trying to talk to people, or you can link in to someone in a metro centre. So the concept of your mobile phone is going to turn into your glasses, and we're going to be driving the use cases in healthcare and education around that. All right, I'm going to finish up because I'm getting hurried up, but I want to emphasise the fact that we've been a part of the collaborative project with Advanced Queensland, teaching nurses in Mount Isa, Quilpie, Charleville, and it's been ridiculously successful. We've now got this success going into India, and we have no apprehension about slowing down. So we're just raising some money at the moment. We were worth $1 million 2 years ago. We're worth 10 today, and the plan is to be worth $100 million in 3 to 4 years. And the truth is, we only have 3 sales in India, and we've done more than $1.5 million in business. So we're just starting the market there, let alone the UK, etc. So there's a lot to be done. We're always looking to partnership. And Ernest Shackleton's always been my inspiration. It's optimism is the true moral courage. We have to fail. So you've got to go in, give it a go, be positive and try and make it work. And if it doesn't, you're going to learn and get better. And that's what we're hopefully trying to do as a startup to a scale up. Thanks, everyone.
At the beginning of the session, I said how important the community was that you have here. And it's possible that the opportunities that might come to you from attending the session could be for the person who's sitting next to you. And I think Brad and Bundles of Rays and your experience and your journey is a fantastic inspiration. And I'm sure that there will be people who will want to come and have a chat to you. And great that you started doing your pitch as well. Okay, so now we will move to our panel discussion, which will be hosted by Chris Leserve, who is our Chief Economic Development Officer. Chris, I'll hand it over to you to lead the panel.
Thank you, Wendy. Look, really great to be here. It's a real privilege to be up on stage alongside NextDC, alongside sort of Google, and alongside sort of Google's now main competitor, Bundle of Rays. A real sort of privilege, but equally, I think Bundle of Rays in particular really puts it into hopefully all of your minds as to what this means at the end of the day. It allows a data-driven sort of organisation to ultimately sell its product into India, and they could do that from here. If it didn't have that capability, if it wasn't able to offer those nursing services, if the latency was an issue, if maybe the cable went down and they had to sort of rebuffer for 5 minutes or 10 minutes, Brad is going to lose a customer, and he's going to lose a lot of customers, and ultimately that business isn't going to be successful. So it's exactly, for us, it's that complete sort of ecosystem. It's by having really strong sort of strategic partners such as NextDC, such as Google, that ultimately enable businesses like Brad's to go from 1 million to 10 million to 100 million, and ultimately sort of shoot for the stars. And for us, we want to make ourselves as attractive as possible from an investment destination through our Data Connect service, through the investment attraction team that we've got here at Council, because ultimately we want a lot more bundle of arrays. We want a lot more Brads coming here, starting their businesses, serving the international community, but right here from our own backyard, and leveraging the fantastic technology that our partners have put into this little part of the world. But I'd like to welcome the panel up. Craig, if you'd like to come and join me, Anderson and Brad, and we'll sort of kick off. You've all talked about the foresight that Council had about 10 years ago that ultimately led us to where we are today. What strategic decisions do we need to be thinking about now that is going to set us up for the next 5 to 10 years? So ultimately, in 5 or 10 years' time, we're repeating this panel when people are saying, hey, 5 years ago, Council or yourselves decided to do this, this or this. What are those things that you think we should be thinking about today?
I would say my first observation is, and as much as it's a joke, the platform, as in being able to build on Google's products and capability, gives you global reach. So if you just use one really simple example, Anderson showed this very elegant map with a picture of connectivity that looks like a mesh. And what that demonstrates is that you're able to reach out into the customer universe and sell whatever digital services that you build in real time with the lowest latency. I've had some really great examples where people have said to me, you need to understand two things. One is that essentially connectivity is the lifeblood of digital capability. The time it takes for me to send an email to Chris and have it come back is not a life and death situation. But if you're providing emergency medical services, or you're using a Da Vinci robot, or you're doing something in real time to provide the world's best doctor talking to a surgeon in real time, you need to have the lowest latency connectivity path, and you need to have redundancy. And the Sunshine Coast has both of those things. The other quick comment I would make is that when we started, my first year, I think we turned over $900,000. We're now about 20 billion. And we're certainly not Google. But getting on the road and starting and finding customers and getting going is ultimately, you look back after a decade. Bill Gates probably has the single greatest saying as to what it means to do that, and that is people almost always overestimate what can be achieved in the next couple of years and underestimate what can be achieved in a decade.
I'd say bundle of rays is the winner. Okay? They won the competition. Okay, bundle of rays is the winner. And we want you all to be winners as well. Okay? Answering your question. It's all about a roadmap for us. We welcome the competition. We don't want to be the last ones laying new cables in the Sunshine Coast. In this industry, there's a lot of leaders and followers, and we lead and follow in certain ways and in other ways. So we hope in a few years from now, there will be somebody else here talking about laying a new cable. Because all the ideas that you put in your economic development roadmap 2 years ago, that's now, for instance, is materializing. Those ideas are materializing. A good idea is only a good idea, and we all know that, once they get implemented. And putting this in the roadmap, not being complacent with the competitive edge that I do believe, I firmly believe, that Sunshine Coast enjoys today. But taking this as a positive force to move forward and drive your economic development plan forward to attract more engagement and more investment from within, as well from other parties of Australia and the world, being very cognizant of this mesh network, because once you touch a on-ramp point of a Google network, a Google Cloud, you are anywhere in the world, anywhere you want. That allows for things such as developing AI agents and everything else that comes with it. I think that's what we need. And that is not starting with a differentiation, but building further the differentiation that Sunshine Coast already has.
Yeah, just quickly, I've been, again, saying this at a lot of the national nursing events and healthcare events that I talk at, and I just finished my innovation fellowship with Ohio State. I actually hate the word innovation. You know, people like patting themselves on the back and talking about innovation and how wonderful innovation is. And 6 months later, you look back and realise, what did you actually do? You know, there's a lot of talk about innovation. And in a startup, like who owns a business here or, you know, in senior management in the region? Okay, so maybe 15% of the room. The truth is, if you don't get paid every month, you have no cash flow, you don't have a business. You need sales. To grow a business, you need to do business. There's a deal flow element to that. Universities are amazing, and in healthcare, they've got to write research papers, but they take 3 to 5 years to get the knowledge base, right? In AI, it's just not going to happen. We're going to sit down and write a research paper today, and in 5 years, it'll be irrelevant because the models have changed, etc. So where is innovation going to come from on the coast? Change. It's going to be you people with the businesses. You're going to have to drive that. And I think what we need on the coast is thought leadership, is a team of people here to tell the world how we're going to do it, how we're going to work with NextDC and Google and communicate that to position us on the coast. Because I want to do that in nursing and the K-12 sector, but I can't do that alone. That's a community piece that we'd have to do and say, look at what we're doing. Might not be right, but we're giving it a shot. This is what change looks like.
We've obviously sort of touched upon healthcare, but what other sort of sectors, when you sort of think about the future, you think about sort of this rapidly sort of emerging space and particularly sort of driven by AI, what other sort of sectors are front of mind with yourselves from a prioritisation perspective? What should we be thinking about from a regional perspective that are going to ultimately deliver the economic benefits, the jobs, you know, for this region? Great.
Minister Charlton asked me this exact question about 3 weeks ago, and the federal government, just out of interest, is asking themselves exactly that question today. What is it about Australia and our region that could give us a competitive advantage in the artificial intelligence era over any other country in Asia or the US or Europe? And today, we have globally leading industries that come out of Australia. We have global leadership in financial services, in healthcare, in nuclear medicine, in ag tech, in space. There are many more industry examples where Australia has global competitive advantage that can be parlayed into globally competitive large language models. We also have the regulatory environment that I talked to earlier that allows Australia to be a safe place with sovereign protections for its information that can't be accessed by other countries. So it's sort of the beginning of this transition into the AI era. And Australia has a very, very significant number of competitive advantages that we're just starting to touch on. The last point I'll make is that there's a difference between sovereign infrastructure and sovereign large language models. And for everybody, I think Peter Thiel, Mark Andreessen, and Ben Horowitz, if you're a founder or running a startup and you want to read a great book on the psychology of what it feels like to build a company, Ben Horowitz wrote a book called The Hard Thing About Hard Things. And it's a stunningly good read. And I was reading it, I think in our first or second year of NextDC, asking myself the question, what have we done? And the key takeaway for me is that there are these extraordinary opportunities where Australia genuinely has competitive advantages, finding them and building on platforms. One of the things that I feel very privileged about is that we actually build a lot of our technology on Google's platform. So not only are Google a customer, but we build a lot of our technology on their technology as well. And building on capabilities. Today, you can be a solopreneur. You can be a one-man startup. You have access to more technology and more compute capability than at any other point in time in history. In the agentic era, and so today I think about my role as a CEO, a lot of the jobs, if you're not using ChatGPT's fully paid pro version deep research, I'm involved with many universities, but I think for a very, very small amount of money, $200 a month, I've got unlimited PhD capable researchers working for me 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Literally nothing I can't do and have access to that doesn't require me tapping into people in my own organisation. So we've got access to more knowledge than we've ever had at any other point in time in history. But the issue is not knowledge. The issue is being prepared to apply it. So take action.
So I'm having the joy at the moment to try and raise money with investors. So we've had a little traction. We've got new markets. Anybody got a spare $4 million in the room that wouldn't mind chipping in? Just looking to close the round before Christmas.
You can talk afterwards.
Yeah.
You take card?
But AI
What's the
agents,
merchant fee on that?
So VCs aggressive, nice people, aggressive. Did I say they're aggressive? No, but so we're building these AI agents for nurses. Teach a nurse how to read a scan or whatever it may be. We're also building them for patients. Like I've got 2 kids, a 6 and a 4-year-old. I love them to death, but it's taken a toll. Parenting is not easy. And when you leave the hospital, they give you a brochure. Thanks, mate. Thanks. But AI agents, just imagine a pair of wearables where you can ask, hey, what about my kid's nutrition and, how am I going to do X and how am I going to do Y? And rather than sitting at 2 a.m. scrolling through sheer exhaustion, mums can have some support that isn't a brochure, right? Like, it really is transformative for healthcare. But our VCs love that, but they want to increase the TAM, the size of the market, so they're pushing us into sport. Imagine being able to look up your favourite sports person with the stats. And the concept of agentic AI will be in every sector. And whatever your business is, if you don't have a facet to explore how those focused containers built off things like RAGs or retrieval augmented guidance systems where you can minimise hallucinations and mistakes, you're going to win to some degree. But again, it's speed to market at the moment, proving your use cases and getting it out there with traction that's going to win that. And having a cable might be a good, reliable source. So that's my thoughts.
So for us, maybe a 2-step approach, or actually a multiple-step approach. For us today in the room, like we are in the industry, we are working. So it's more about us being open to embrace the technology. It's our mindset. A lot about limitations and hurdles we find in our personal lives and professional lives, those decision makes we have to make, is we hold ourselves back a lot. We, for some reason, we are always very afraid of embracing technology for some reason. Embracing something new is difficult. Piggyback on your example of the scientific calculator. The biggest challenge for us coming out of the university was whether a computer would take out our jobs or not. That was our challenge. We were competing against computers because computers would do programming better than us. And that's when we started to use Microsoft Word. Microsoft was the name? Not Sheets, what's the other one? Excel. Sheets is better than Excel, by the way. Okay. So that was the challenge for us. So today, how do we embrace and how we become friends with AI? How does that positively impact our lives? That's the first step. Now think about the future as well. Kids, education. How do we educate them? There are so many things we can do. We don't know how the world is going to look like in 20 years. That example about the aeroplane and us being able to step into the moon for the first time. In such a short period of time, if you think about it, that is going to be shortened and shortened and shortened further for newer technologies. So we as parents, or we as educators, we as professionals, the closer and the more we facilitate the journey for this newer generation to embrace new technology and make these new technologies available to the next generation, to the next generation, so on and so forth. I think this is very important, and that is definitely part of the equation.
Thank you. I'm probably going to throw it open to everyone in the room. If you do have a question, please put your hand up. Say your name and where you're from, and if it's a question for a specific sort of member of the panel, please let us know who your question is directed to. Over there.
Hello, I'm Robin Cook, and I have a small education company based in Nambour. If anyone would like to share some love to Nambour, we'd really love to have you there. We use Google suite of documents every day in our work. Now that you're on the Sunshine Coast, what sort of things are you going to specifically offer to education facilities, particularly around the 15 to 19-year-old age group? What can we take advantage of in that?
Our intention is to work closer with the Sunshine Coast Council, understand what we can work together with, and fit ourselves into this program of work, this roadmap. One thing we want to do is to start doing sporadic solutions that does not impact the community as much. The approach we're trying to make, and we try to make this everywhere, is more pervasive because from experience, as we partner with an organization like the Sunshine Coast, we can always see we maximize the impact. So hopefully we can make it available sooner than later, but that's the direction we're taking.
Hi, Greg Searle, how are you doing? I'm doing some research in AI. I think it's been the most said phrase so far tonight, AI this, AI that, etc., etc. My question is, what about cognition? Do they understand what we mean? And where are we with that? That's the area that I'm interested in. Thank you.
Who wants to take that? Craig?
Sure. I've been doing AI research for over a decade, and I can absolutely guarantee you I don't have an answer. What do we know with absolute certainty? I mean, we are building machines today that have more compute capability than they've ever had in history. If you think about the change that we've made, we've gone from the history of general purpose computing to accelerated computing. So the move from CPUs to GPUs gives us 10 to 100 times more computing capability. But the machines are still programmed, and programs can have bias programmed into them. If you think about the way a large language model learns, part of the challenge with the accuracy or the validation or trust in information is if we teach a large language model exactly the same way as we teach a human in school, the knowledge that we deliver to them is the only context that they have. So today, a lot of large language models can be trained not just on Wikipedia, but they can be trained on Reddit chats. So they can be trained with everybody's opinions that aren't necessarily right or wrong. The shift from having access to the universes of information, then being able to make sense of it and have opinions, is a trait that is innately human. And I'm not sure that that move to what's described, the question you're asking is about sentience to some example, which is the ability for machines to be able to think for themselves. And there are some great books on sentience. Mustafa Suleyman, The Coming Wave for AI. There's a lot of great books being written on this question recently. So will our future AI overlords look favourably upon us in a decade to come? I think the bigger question is going to be about how we continue to train large language models, the biases that the models have, and then ultimately their ability to be able to continue to interact with humans. I very, very regularly get asked the question, will we need a universal basic income in the future because everybody will be out of a job? And I think that if you go back in history, in every industrial revolution, new technology was developed. It made society better. It gave us the ability to solve problems that we never historically had solved. And I think the bigger question, maybe in the next 5 or 10 years, is how can we improve the quality of society through the advancement of technology using large language models? In the future, there may be a question to ask or answer about superintelligence and can machines think for themselves? And I'm sure at some point in time, just like in human biology, synthetic biology will have to solve the regulatory and legislative questions that come with how computers will think for themselves. Good luck.
just quickly on that, as a point of ethics in healthcare, rather than the cognition piece, the feeling of being human. So I've worked to Afghanistan, I've worked in Iraq. You know, the concept of equity in resources is stark in the modern world, let alone from Brisbane to Mount Isa. But just think about aged care. I don't know, is anyone parents in an aged care home at the moment? Right, it's a hard industry, right? It's hard for nurses to work in. Imagine that there's an AI agent speaking with your mum and dad in an aged care. This could happen tomorrow, right? I could build you an Unreal Engine, high-fidelity avatar with metahumans, put ChatGPT with the $200 a month subscription into that Unreal Engine person, and they could sit with your mum and dad in a nursing home and talk to them as a point of company. That usability and UX of how we talk and interact with compute and technology is what we're going to have to derive, because it's coming really fast. So what is human? Because in nursing we argue about the nurse's role being holding the hand and being the Florence Nightingale, the point of compassion. Is a computer going to do that? Because we don't have enough nurses. In 2035 in Australia alone, we're going to be 60,000 nurses short. So, you know, cognition is one thing, human essence is another, because that human essence could be applied tomorrow, which is kind of fascinating.
Thank you. Look, I think we're probably going to have to wrap it up. I get the sense that we could probably have gone for a lot longer. A really fascinating sort of topic. Ladies and gentlemen, look, please thank our guests here today, sort of Craig, Braid and Anderson. We do just have some tokens of our appreciation from Sunshine Coast Council. No one leaves here empty-handed. We're known for our fine food. We've got a curated plate showcase on at the moment. So look, thank you very much for taking the time to come and show your insights. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So I just wanted to wrap up really quickly. One of the things, Brad spoke about thought leadership. One of the programs that we run are these things called ideation sessions. And we ran an ideation session around sports tech, and we've run one around geospatial intelligence. Now we've now got a database of more than 250 companies in our geospatial community. And the image that you see up there is one of the connections that we were able to make with Mountain Creek State School and a company called One Giant Leap. And what you've got there is children who are actually talking to astronauts in space and asking them, interviewing them, what do astronauts have for breakfast? How do astronauts exercise in space? So I think that's a really cool example that the value that we can add in our role as council is to make those connections. We can be a point of information and connection. But I guess just coming up, we are going to run another ideation session around health tech. So if you have an interest in this, we can send it out to people. You can scan that code. But what we're really looking to do here is to build the community. We've got examples like Brad, wherever he is, and there'll be other people in this community who are doing really cool, innovative stuff. So what we're looking to do is to bring the community together and to basically create the future. Oh, and I guess this is just a tool which I use all the time. If the QR code works, this is an interactive map. You can go onto here and you can search for all the industry groups. So if you click on industry groups, it will bring up the 40 industry groups. If you bring up Sunshine Coast Jobs, it'll take you to a link for the jobs. If you click on our regional economic development strategy, it will take you to that. If you've got kids that are coming to the school, to the Sunshine Coast, you don't know which school to go to, you can click on the tab about school placements. So we've created it as a one-stop shop, and I guess it's a tool that everybody can be using. Free tool, we can send out the link to that. So thanks very much for your time. We have gone over 15 minutes. Really appreciate everybody coming on. You're a fantastic community. Thanks so much for everyone for coming along.